Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it really means, and the process of getting there. Today, I am super excited to have a conversation with Stephanie Shaw. Now, Stephanie, before we start talking, do you want to introduce yourself to the Chasing Happiness community in case there's people out here who don't know you?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Crystal, for having me. I appreciate it. As you said, I'm Stephanie Shaw. I'm a health and wellness nutrition strategist. I guess I should have let you introduce me.
That's okay.
I'm a health and wellness nutrition strategist, and I work with midlife women who are looking to lose weight and gain confidence.
I love this. And this is kind of perfect because I'm in my early 40s and I have all kinds of questions because over the last 2 years, especially, COVID has done one thing to lots of people. It's either caused them to gain a whole lot of weight because of stress and eating habits and everything else, or people have started to take their health into their own hands and they've gotten healthy over the last 2 years. And it seems like everybody I talk to has one story or the other, and there really is no sort of in between. So have you been seeing that with your clients as well?
I have. There are a lot of people who are, just like you said, they're at one extreme or another and trying to find that happy medium and that balance. That's where a lot of people are coming to me. You know, I'm working out all the time. There has to be a happy medium, or I'm not doing anything. COVID hit me really hard. How do I pull myself up? So yeah, right. You're right. COVID was, I guess it's all our perspective on COVID. Did a lot of bad, but some people took it and ran with it and did some positive things with their health.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I know for me personally, I'll just speak, to my own story. For me, it was kind of this wake up call, but not in the sense of like, I need to take my health as a forefront of my overall everything, because health was really important to me before, but I suddenly, because of COVID, had a different amount of time to invest in my health with, being home more and having a little bit more free time and not commuting and all of that stuff. So I think there's a lot of people that probably have had that. And now that we're sort of coming out of it, things here, especially in Canada, people are starting to get back to whatever a normal routine looks like. So what suggestion would you have to people who maybe have sort of either struggled or been able to focus a little bit more, but now because things are shifting back, it might be hard to sort of keep on track?
Yeah, I say just the way you implement it into your quote unquote work life at home, there's ways to do the same thing when you're back in the office. For some people, it may be waking up a little bit earlier or going to bed a little later, but think about when you're in that work environment and how a lot of times there's, close your ears to all the bosses, but there are some times where you're really not doing anything constructive. Either you're kind of at the water cooler chatting, or you're spending lunchtime out eating with folks. I've had clients start walking groups now that they're back in the office. Do still continue to implement the things that you were doing before, but begin to think about your work day in a different way. I've also had a lot of employers be open to changing the work week, what it looks like. So instead of the, quote unquote, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, what does a Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday look like? You add an hour to the day, to the work day, but then that gives people 3 days to actually regroup, get back to, kind of keep their groove going where they're taking more personal care. So again, implementing things during the workday and perhaps working to change your regular 9 to 5 schedule. So, yeah.
I love the idea of that. And I think lots of people would be on board with that, because the one thing that happens with us during a weekend when you're working a 9 to 5 job is you're like Sunday, you're like, I haven't even had a chance to rest. So having an extra day would be great.
I know. And so for people who don't want to I did that with my team between, I think we were around 2014 to 2019, we did that. We had Fridays off, but it worked out so well because the people with small kids, they made all their doctor's appointments on that Friday. So they weren't away from the office. They felt more, I could feel the energy being different on Monday mornings than it was in the past, because I'd given them that extra time to kind of do the stuff you have to do every single night. So again, with going back in the office, I think that's a good idea for people to start to implement, and for self-employed people too. It's so important because we're working all the time. What does that look like, having that one extra day where you're completely step back? And if you're not thinking about doing something physical, it's for your mental health as well. Yes. Be able to step away from everything.
Yes, I love that you brought up mental health because all I'm thinking of as you're describing this 4-day work week is how
Mm.
amazing is that for someone's mental health to be less stressed out, more present while they're at work, which is a part of our overall health and wellness, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it is. And I will tell you, I will again encourage folks to either do it for yourselves or do it for your team and start to track how the work is more productive because people want to, they want to make sure that you keep that as a perk, oh, that can be, I never use it as a threat, but it was kind of out there like, if this isn't working, then we may have to go back. So people were more willing to show up, do the work, get the work done. And then there was one person, her child's dentist only opened on Wednesday. So like other than,
Aw.
2 times per year, they were never off for anything like that because they used that Friday for themselves. So I just, again, as you said, I think the mental health perspective and the showing up and the productivity becomes huge. So as we're transitioning back from COVID, just things to think about.
I love this. And it begs the question, how did you get into this? Like most people wouldn't necessarily be as young people thinking this is kind of the area I want to spend my life focused on. So what drove you in this direction?
So I was sick. I was very, very sick for 2 years. So the last 2 years of running the nonprofit, I ended up at 18 different doctors, two world-renowned medical facilities, over $20,000 out of pocket. Because I always quote the 20, and I forget about the travel to the different states and, time away from work and so forth. My body basically shut down. It was started to fight me because I wasn't taking care of it. And I wasn't like, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I wasn't eating quote unquote bad, but I had so much stress that I was holding on to my body and it started to attack itself. Plus, I was eating as a vegetarian, but I was more of a carbitarian. You know what I mean? I wasn't eating balanced the way I should. So over the course of the years, I started getting migraines, twitching eye, floaters in my eye, rapid heartbeat after I ate or walked up and down stairs, numbness, neuropathy. There was a gamut from head to toe of the pain that I felt internally and externally. And so I made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to take any medicine. So I found a naturopath who's also a chiropractor, and he helped me use food to heal my body. But before all of that happened, probably 10 years before that, off and on, I'm like, I want to do something in food. I love food. I'm a foodie. I want to have a food blog, or I want to open a vegan restaurant. I always had that idea. So unfortunately, the illness kick-started that journey. And during my healing process, I had access to him, but he was $7 a minute. So I started digging deeper and deeper into what does this look like, reading books. And I got 2 certifications. And at the end of it, I'm like, hey, while this struggle was really hard, it was really easy to heal my body naturally. I was able to just eat differently and exercise. I'm like, who would have thunk it? So that started the journey. And that's why I like to support the women that I support.
I love this because as much as I think a lot of people who are listening maybe are not struggling with something chronically the way you were, most of us are living with a high level of stress that we don't always recognize that we're living with. And the simple fact that we live in this world right now where if you go to the doctor and you say something's wrong, typically you're given a pill and sent home to treat the symptom, but not the overall problem that's happening. So I love that you're focused on this because so much of our society has forgotten that there is foods that can heal us. There are ways of eating and, sort of managing our days that don't require that kind of medication. That's a huge deal for a lot of people.
It is a huge deal, even for folks that may have been on that journey and they're taking medicine for type 2 diabetes or things like that. You can come out of that if you change the way that you eat. Part of, as you said, a lot of people may not have like a chronic issue as I had. And technically, I was never diagnosed with anything, but I believe based on my research, it was adrenal fatigue. Sure. As you said, people may not have that, but they may need to come out of something. And that's why I start off. When you're working with me, I start off with the mindset. So what are those roadblocks? What childhood triggers? What behaviors need change? Why are you procrastinating, but what are the things that'll make you procrastinate or make you feel as if you need to be perfect? And once you can kind of start to dig to that root cause of what is going on, that's the only way you're going to get people to start working on the other three layers that I work on: metabolism, inflammation, and hormones. So that as you said, getting to that root cause and understanding what is really going on in your body. So beyond the stuff that I quote unquote blame that I was doing, there was so much stress in my life during that time. So that wasn't making anything better. So all your hormones get impacted, like your cortisol levels get impacted, the leptin and the ghrelin. You think that you have that hunger hormone there, but you can actually trick those hormones if you're already overeating or if you're under eating. So understanding how all of that helps build a better you is what I try to help other people to do and to understand.
I love this. And I think it's so important, especially as we age, because as we age, so much of that, I love that you're exactly right. Like, one thing I have definitely noticed, and this is probably the healthiest I've ever been in my whole life, is in my early 40s, but you definitely feel the hormonal changes. You see the things that change because of it. You notice, I only got 6 hours sleep last night. I can barely function today. Like, all of those things just hit you so much differently as you get older.
I know. Isn't it great? It's so bananas. And luckily you're in your early 40s. I was like in my late 40s when I started to uncover like what really, really needs to happen. But the magic behind when you start to recognize how your hormones act and react, the difference between acute and chronic inflammation in your body and how to get rid of some of that inflammation in your body. When you start to understand those changes and not just think about the weight going off is wonderful, but not just think about those things. That's when you can start to battle that midlife, so to speak. So I sleep like a baby. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh man, like I know now, okay, thanks, Stephanie. What did you eat this week? What's going on? And how do you need to come out of that? Okay, either you need to change the people you were around this week, change how you acted to those folks, change a little bit around your work schedule, and or stop eating so many, processed things or what have you.
Sure.
But, so it'll take me maybe 2 to 3 bad nights to get back on a couple months good track. But I won't allow midlife to get me. I'm going to control this midlife thing, and food, exercising, your thought patterns, journaling, meditating, all of those things can help you with that midlife crisis.
I love this. And it's such an important thing, especially I love that one of the things that you sort of incorporate is the mindset, because I think that's been such a big missing piece for most people when they're thinking about health. We are just starting to sort of discover how much mindset really does play a role in healing, in emotional well-being, in all of these other areas, because science really hadn't been, looking into such things before now, right? So I love that this is part of what you do. I wonder, for everyone listening, if they want to work with you, if they want to get in touch with you, even just follow you online, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Sure. So they can go to my website. It's stephanielynshaw.com. And on my website, you find out more information about how to get in contact with me. And you can also get all of my social media information there as well.
Wonderful. And for people listening, of course, I will post in the show notes all of the links so that you can follow, you can get in touch, you can do all the fun stuff. But I also want to ask you, because I think for me personally, over the last few years, health has really become sort of my thought process in a day-to-day kind of function, like, and from a mindset point of view, as well as a physical health standpoint, like whenever I decide I want to do something, whether it's go visit someone, whether it's go to dinner, all of those things, I think, is this something that, one, is going to make me happy, but two, is going to contribute to my overall health and well-being? And so I think these are really important questions to ask. So what questions do you typically sort of give your clients to start the process for them?
Yeah, so the same. So I'm actually just doing some work for a client, and just the client is more used to counting points and counting different nutrient values and so forth. So my questions are more around the line of, how does it make you feel? So like you said, how does it make you feel when you feel like you have to go to grandma's and eat the big dinner? Or how does this make you feel when you go out with friends? Is it something that's going to bring you peace and joy? How does it make you feel when you're always counting points and not just enjoying what you have?
Right.
And then when people start to think about food as joy and as nourishment for their body, I think that trigger goes off and they're like, oh, wait, I don't need to have to worry about every single thing I put in my mouth. I just need to be aware. Do you know what I mean? Just be a little bit more aware of what I'm eating, make sure I'm eating healthy foods, and I don't need to count and make sure I have X number of calories per day. Because if I had to count points or calories, well, it never would happen. But I know what foods bring me joy. I know I can think in my mind, oh, wait, I didn't have any omega-3 today. I try to get clients on that course where they're thinking more about, how am I going to be healthy? How am I going to be joyful? How is this going to serve my body versus what foods am I eating?
I love this. And I am 100% with you. If I had to count calories every day, I don't think I would do it. I do tend to keep track a little bit.
I'm sorry, Krista, but yeah, one day.
That's okay. I do try to keep track, make sure I get enough protein and, vitamins and those sorts of things. But if I had to be stringent, especially from the point system, like you're talking about the point thing, and I'm just like, if I had to count points, food would not be enjoyable and I would stop eating altogether.
Right. Or you get so focused on that food that you're restricted. There's no joy. There is no joy. And I believe food should be joy. I get happy when I wake up in the morning thinking about what I'm going to eat for dinner, because I wake up every morning thinking about what I'm going to eat.
I love it.
Because I love to eat. So I think it should be a process of bringing you joy, not a process of something that you kind of have to do. I know food is for survival, but it's also can be joyful.
Yes, absolutely. I think it can be joyful too. One of the things I do, so I'm in Canada, so we have, sort of harsh winters depending.
Yes. I'm in Northeast Ohio, so.
Yes, so you totally get it. But in the spring, I do grow a garden. So this is the time of year where I start to plant seeds so that they can sprout. And food is joyful because I plant it, I watch it grow, I cultivate it, and then I get to eat it. And there is this process that happens in my brain that goes with the food that I grow. And yes, it should be joyful.
Love that. I love that. I actually, before I got on the call, I'm in my room, my south-facing window. I'm like, my okra's not sprouting. I'm like, so after the call, I'm like, I'm going to text my son and see what's happening. So I love that you said that. We're chasing happiness, right?
Yes.
We're chasing happiness, and we should be chasing that happiness in every single thing that we do.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. I love this. Yeah. I do want to be respectful of your time. So there's a few questions that I typically ask at the end of the podcast. Are you game to answer?
Sure thing.
Awesome. So the first question is, what inspires you?
My children and my grandchild. I'm like
planning ahead.
I'm planning ahead. So they really do, because I want to be able to set an example that's a generational example. And part of when I'm working with folks, I always talk about the fact that you're not changing your eating habits. You're not changing your health habits. You're changing generational habits. Mm-hmm. So understand what you're doing, the food you put in your mouth, how you think about it, how you process it. If you're super anal about something, then you're passing that on to your child. So that's exactly what I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm doing things that are impacting generations.
That's huge. I love that answer, especially because as you're talking about it, I'm thinking I used to cook with my grandmother, which is how I fell in love with cooking, right? But then my parents, both parents working, we never talked about food. It was always, what can you pull out of the cupboard and cook for yourself? Because nobody's home, right? So it came in a box or a can or something like that, right? And I love the idea of sort of being reconnected, not just to the process of cooking, but food and nutrition and all of that generationally, so that we don't have another generation like mine that just pulls Kraft dinner out of the cupboard, right?
Yeah, it's huge. And not only is that the physical process, but there's an internal process as well. So the mother is passing on the genes, passing on the way that she eats onto her unborn child. So it's super, super important that we think about what we're doing in order to impact our next generation. But we had a very similar upbringing. My grandmother made me love food. My parents are like, yeah, you're hungry, you better figure it out.
I think it's just our generation, honestly.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Okay. The next question is, if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
I just That is so funny you asked that question. My husband and I just had the same conversation Saturday night.
Oh,
And I
wow.
said I would, when my freshman year in college, I would spend every single waking hour in the library.
Aw, I love that.
That was just my thought process because I think I didn't know about naturopathy. I didn't know about functional medicine or anything like that at that time. But wow, what if I would have known 30 plus years ago and I would have been like on the ground floor and I don't know. I just thought about that question. So that's my answer. More time in the library. How nerdy of me.
Hey, I am right there with you. I absolutely love that. And I love that it's not just, reading a book, it's actually learning something that will put you on this path that you're on a little bit sooner in life to have a bigger impact. Like, that's just amazing. I love that answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is, if you could have a conversation with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I think it would be two people, but it would be my great grandparents. So my dad's grandparents. And the reason for that is because my dad's grandpa was a barber and he owned his own business in the 40s in rural Alabama in the United States of America, which is huge. So, and my middle son, who he's a graphic designer by trade, he has his BFA, but he's also a barber, starting his own business. So how cool would that connection be? And my great grandma, his wife, I have the deed actually. She bought their land and built their house in the 40s in rural Alabama as an African American woman. So what made it different for the good, not good part? It wasn't generationally passed on. It was they did it, but didn't realize the impact that they could have made. So, but I still would like to know what even made them own their own business. She was the talent. She was the seamstress. I've never seen a picture of her without a hat and a suit on, and she made the hat, she made the suit, she made everything. So yeah, to have a conversation with them, what motivated them? Where did they get their skills from? What made them want to own a business? What made them even think to buy their own property and have a house? So,
and just I love this answer because now I'm thinking the struggle that it must have been for them to be able to do that, how they overcame that and what that meant to them emotionally and their family. And oh my God, I love that answer. Oh
yeah. And it's a little cooler because so the man that sold them a house was an African-American male as well, sold them the property, but both of our families ended up in Ohio. So we're still connected. Do you know what I mean? So that's, and we have county family reunions back in the county where they lived. So it's kind of cool that connection is still there. But yeah, I talked to my mama doing this.
I love that. Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. That's probably the best answer I've ever gotten from someone. I love it.
Well, thank you.
So the last question is, what does happiness mean to you?
I think it's different every single day. So some days happy is getting stuff done on time at work and getting down my checklist. Some days happiness is just crawling around on the floor with my grandson. Some day happiness is just sitting alone and reading a book. So it changes every day.
Oh, I love that. I love that you said that because I am 100% the same way. You could ask me at 8 a.m. and the answer would be different by 10 a.m. It just depends on what all has happened throughout the course of the morning, right? So I love that because I think often what happens is we end up chasing this idea of what we think is going to make us happy. And we miss all the stuff in the interim that does make us happy because we're so busy looking ahead instead of being present in the moment. So I love that. Thank you.
And that's how I came up with that because I was always busy chasing what's next. And when you get sick for so long and you're on your tail for a while, you have time to think. I mean, it rears its ugly head sometimes, but sitting, thinking with yourself, you understand what true happiness is. And like you said, every 15 minutes, it might be different.
Exactly. It was, so here in Canada, I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it was snowing. We had a horrible storm yesterday. But today it's beautiful. It's sunny. It's almost summer-like weather. So for me today, happiness is just the sun and I get to go outside and right. And, yesterday that wouldn't have been my answer. So, I absolutely adore this. Yes. Just yes, all around. Before I do let you go, do you have anything else that you want to share with the Chasing Happiness community?
No, I just want to say thank you so much. This was really awesome. I love the time that we spent together. And if I can be of service to anyone, either as a client or just on a quick call to answer some questions. I'd love to be of service to your listeners.
Oh, I am 100% sure they are going to love this conversation as much as we both have. And I, of course, for everyone listening, will post in the show notes all of the ways that you can get in touch with Stephanie. And Stephanie, this has been amazing. I adore you. I am happy to have you back on to this podcast at any time to talk more, because I'm sure there is 100 million things we could talk about that we haven't even touched on as far as health and wellness. So thank you so much for all of your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys have a great week. If you found this conversation helpful or enjoyable and you think someone else might too, please feel free to share it with them. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll chat with you next week. Bye for now.